we are Nerds of the West. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we are giving our thoughts on Reload. This is a battle royale board game. It takes a lot of inspiration from a few different battle royale video games and distills it down into a dice combat, dice management to some level game. My name is Tom. We got a Lachlan and a Callum and a Chris. And we have all just played this game all together. If you want to see that video, it'll be up on YouTube. You can check it out. We do have to say, before we dive into any of our thoughts, that this game was sent to us by Colossal Games and their distributor. So thank you very much to them. It will not impact our thoughts in any way. We try and be completely honest. If you have any thoughts on the game, please leave them down below. Without further ado, I think I want to start with art. The art in this game is pretty solid. Like there's some real nice, pretty pictures all around, and
it's a green field, and you can tell that a gun is a gun and a grenade is a grenade. And
yeah, I mean, I think overall I have nothing really major to complain. The cards are really nice, the art's good. I think maybe different biomes would be good as well. Like,
well, it's
green.
A modular board, so there are a few extra tiles to throw in there, but
they're still green.
They're all still green.
They're all still green. The only addition is like some of them have buildings, so there's not like a brown or a blue. Like they're all still the same color, but overall, like art-wise, no real complaints. The play area, the iconography is good.
I like the different characters. I think all the different, where's your card? All the different characters look quite nice. Like they've very much gone, hey, here's some cliches and some alien looking people and some big strong looking people. It works. It fits the theme. And that's probably a good segue into the next section is, to me, it's one of those games that the mechanics match the theme really well, and that's what I love in a board game. When you can get something like quickly moving your way around a map, but putting yourself at risk for doing so into a game, that it makes a lot of sense to me to make that happen.
Which very much in like an actual video game battle royale, where if you've got your eyes on the prize, where you're like, my task today is move across the map and loot that item, you can get across the map and loot that item, but it leaves you very little left to defend yourself and kind of occupy other people around.
Which in this game, if you're doing things, you're like, I need to assign dice to move around the map, but then that leaves you less dice to defend with later on.
Action economy.
The action economy in this game is awesome.
So action economy is good, works really well with the theme of having to move around, and then the mechanics also work very well. It's not just combat heavy. You can just run around and pick up objectives. You can lay traps. You can put down walls, which definitely change the way that it would play, as opposed to it just being, here is an island of hexes and go beat each other up.
Yeah, it's not just an arena combat game, because the aim of the game isn't just to kill everyone else at the table. It's to score yourself some victory points by picking up items and dropping them back at the cornucopia, by injuring people and killing people. You get a lot of points for killing people, but you can get just as many by picking up a few things along the way. It means that you're not stuck to one plan, I guess.
No,
and not just in and out and done.
And it does change, and being modular, I think everything is like, here's the base mechanics, here's the modular, here's some objectives. You do the best as what you can with what you're given, which again is on point with the theme of being a battle royale. It's never going to be straightforward, it's never going to make sense, and everything around you is changing all at once. So I think theme-wise is really good. I don't know if there's many other battle royale games out there. The only other game that came to mind was Survival, which is the island chipping away, and that's like a super old game, but it's not a battle royale as per se. So even though it's a bit of a cliche, I mean, it's good to see this being implemented into a board game, and I think they do it very well.
Chris, did you have any thoughts on theme or anything in particular you liked?
Well, I guess it's kind of to do with theme, and it's mostly mechanics. I think this is one of the only games I've played where like you're not necessarily counting like points in the traditional sense. You're not moving your like score tracker along, you know, the outside of the board. Whereas it actually feels like the points are on the board. Like this physical token is what I want to put here on my tracker, right? And that made all the objectives feel like they were worth doing.
That is fair, because a lot of other games where you pick something up, it's like there's only a handful, or like you only get them very sparingly. Whereas this game is like nearly every space has an objective to get to.
So there's so many tokens. You can always see like, okay, there's my character. There's where I need to get to. What can I do like along the way to get some incidental pickup tokens, or like if someone's in the way and I shoot them, I can get like these red tokens, and the different sizes of them comparatively make them. You're able to see like which objectives are more valuable to you immediately in
And
your turn.
is it worth doing those objectives if it's going to hurt you in the long run?
Yeah.
To pick things up and activate stuff means you assign a 2 or a 3 die, which makes it easier for your opponents to then attack
To attack you, yeah.
I think my one gripe, if it is a gripe when it comes to the mechanics of this game, is I can take my turn and I can be all good and ready, and then Callum and Lachlan, who are 2 turns away from me, can run all the way from the other side of the map and attack me. And that makes it very hard to balance. But it's also quick enough that it's like, cool, I'm dead. I'm back in. Let's go again.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you die, then you're out for that little round until it's your turn again and you get to come back in, so you're not in danger of being just wailed on. Yes, you can run from nearly one side of the map to the other side of the map, but then you can't really do a lot more because you've only got 5 dice.
True. Once
for
Callum has
5
run
actions.
and attacked me,
Yeah.
then Chris is going to do that to him next turn.
Yeah, do it to Callum.
Right. So, and I feel like there are mechanics to mitigate people from running across the map to getting you as well by putting up walls and putting down traps. We didn't do a lot of traps. I mean, Chris did, and
Yeah, I
Callum
guess
put down one.
I'm the only one who got
but-
points from traps.
Yeah, Tom put one down and I stepped into it and I failed.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that like if all 4 of us were putting traps, it'd be very different because there'd be a lot more on the board and there'd be a bit that risk and reward.
Chris put a lot down and they never got activated because everyone just avoided them.
But it stopped people from moving through. Because
Yeah.
I had the idea when, in the very end of our game, Lachlan was 2 spaces away from me and I was going to go in with my melee weapons. But Chris's traps bordered that entire wall between us that I then had to sit back and I can only take 1 shot with my sniper rifle.
Especially once the gas starts coming in and you if you get stuck in that spot by matching the trap, then
it's stopping
you take a
movement.
damage.
So I think in that regard, everyone's got their own special ability. I don't think I used mine as much as I could have. Tom had probably the most useful ability by having that extra movement.
Extra move, and my second move was a 4 when yours is a 3.
Yeah, so that was pretty good. But like, I was the only one that built walls. Chris was basically the only one that built traps. And then Callum and Tom were the only ones really doing combat. And so it wasn't like an even spread of everyone's doing combat, everyone's building walls, everyone's doing traps.
Yeah.
Which is fine, but I think the next time we play, it will be like, there will be more people using walls, which will ultimately change it up. Because if like there's 2 players who've got their walls up, then Callum's not going to be able to shoot someone and you can hide behind someone else's wall. I was relying solely on my walls to protect me, but if someone had theirs up, then I could use that for cover as well from an opponent.
It's the big, because like with traps, imagine if like these 3 areas just trying to get back into the cornucopia were trapped off. It would stop you from just being able to like, because in Tom's last turn, he was going to take but didn't take. It was that idea of go in, get the loot and get back in, where if there were traps in the way, it would have been, well, if I do get one more turn, I can't just go in to score points. I need to actually achieve something in this turn and within 1 space.
Yeah.
So if
How cool is the trap system though?
Oh, the trap system's great.
So it's scissors, paper, rock, but on a token.
Yeah, it's one of the most...
You lay out your token, and then the other person, when they activate it, goes 3, 2, 1. Oh, it was scissors. I beat your trap and I score a point. Love it. Super simple, super quick, super easy to understand.
Yeah.
And you become one of the elements in the game.
Yeah.
So
You're in the game.
you're in the game. So I think, yes, we've only played it the once, but I think that like it has so much potential for the game to play differently the next round. And while things were heavy on range in this one, they might be different in the next game where it's like close combat. So I don't want to discredit those other actions because I think that everything does work quite well. There is a couple of mechanics that we kind of ran the numbers and it didn't seem to work the way that it should, or be balanced in a way that it should as well. But that's the nature of games where there's a lot of movement and a lot of pickups and stuff.
I appreciate that there's a good range of items as well. We had some pretty basic items when we played, just doing some damage, but here's healing armor. Every single time you heal, it becomes a instant crit heal. You get healed too. Sniper rifle helmet. You've got goggles. Your dice always get +1, or one of your ones gets +1.
Well, no, that one also has the ability to run through gas.
That is very cool.
Which I find funny because that's counterintuitive to the sniper rifle.
Yeah, that you get. It depends on your sniper rifle, because there's another sniper rifle here that gets its crits on too. So maybe it depends what you're doing. This one, push people away from you. Imagine that you've got the ability to start moving people all around. So there are some really interesting ways that it interacts with everything else that's going on around it.
So the core gameplay, moving around, we were all pretty happy with. Everyone was pretty satisfied with the way that it moved and it felt. It didn't feel like you didn't have enough actions. The action economy worked quite nicely.
And the risk of losing those actions is enough for you to try and play defensive.
I got one of the best examples. I had a plan. I had mapped out all 5 of my dice to do what I needed to do. And then Callum, in his turn ahead of me, injured me, which reduced me down to 2 dice, which basically I had to change my entire turn because I was injured, which that ebb and flow of the game is quite interesting.
Which I think the other big thing as well is we were talking about how strong and weak melee versus ranged weapons are. And the biggest thing is I've just thought about it now, is with with ranged weapons, you have to assign 1 dice per shot you want to take.
Yeah.
While with Tom's movement speed, all you have to do is assign 1 dice to melee and you roll all of your dice for melee.
Yeah.
So it turns from going, I have 1 shot out of my gun, therefore I can do something else with all my other actions. Tom can just go, 1 dice for my melee, and then he rolls 4 dice against you to go.
That's what I did to Chris. Like, I basically had melee, and I moved into a space, rolled, killed him in 1 action with melee. Whereas you guys, even though like Tom had a gun that had 3 spaces, he could shoot that 3 times, but he's only rolling 2 dice.
Yeah.
That was it.
And it's always going up against your highest dice.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a lot. I think the combat system with how that balances out is really interesting, because if you have a ranged weapon and you see someone put some stuff into like a 3 and a 2, you know you've got a pretty good shot of doing some damage against them.
Yeah.
So you're taking advantage of those opportunities as you see them come up, which is, once again, super thematic.
As well as being able to choose the items at the beginning of your turn, because you might see that, oh, Tom's only got a 2s and 3s to defense. I'm now going to roll with my melee weapons because I'm close enough to do that. Or if you see that, oh, I'm not actually close enough, let me equip my sniper rifle instead so I can then do actions with other stuff.
The fact that you've got a backpack and can change things out, and we didn't pick up as many green items, and like I wanted to throw a grenade at one point, but it just didn't play out that way, and that would have been fun.
Right,
I appreciate that the flow of the game forces you into those different situations. I started off the game going, I'm going to pick up some stuff and run it back to the base. And then Callum was like, I'm going to kill you. And I'm like, cool, I guess I'm going into combat now, because now Lachlan has had that extra time to pick up all the stuff I wanted to pick up.
Yeah.
So there is a real nice push and pull that comes through everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that covers everything to do with the gameplay and how it flows.
I like the endgame scoring stuff. I appreciate that there's opportunities for quick grabbing of points with these instant scoring. The next person to set off a trap in any way, or the next person to get points from a trap, I think is the right way to say it, gets extra points, and you can push yourself to get stuff that pops up. Once again, opportunistic. I would have liked it if we didn't get stuck with only these ones out here. But
let's look at this for a second. So I have some ideas, thoughts. So this track was pretty interesting. This is the achievement track when Tom manages to bring it up if he can. So this is the achievement track. And you've got a stack of cards in here, which are just random achievements that can be done, and it kind of pushes the gameplay in a direction. You don't have to do them because they're there as like an incentive on top of what is already on the board. And they're broken into 2 different achievements. There's next and most. So the next ones are lightning bolts, and it's the next person to do that achievement will get the reward that is at the bottom of the of that achievement. So there's like normally these achievement tokens that are listed there, and the next person to do that gets that, and then a new one would come out, and then it's the next person to do that one if it's a next token. Whereas these mosts, what happened was, I think the most should have been the end game goal or a community goal that everyone has, just like every other game, where it's come out and it's its own spot over here, and it's like, this is the end game goal for this game, right?
And
everything else is just nexts. And you get, this one here is worth an extra 5 or 10 points if you were the person to do that particular goal. And most were sort of this thing that's like, there's only 3 or 4 different types. So it's like, oh, this game is whoever has the most reloads. This other game is whoever has the most equipment. But as opposed to having all 3 of them at the same time, it just was like, all right, just disregard it. There are ways of the board clearing itself in events, but we only saw it happen once. And that would be my biggest change to the achievement board. But otherwise, I really liked the fact that you have these next. It's like the first person to do this gets that. And it is, you know.
And I think ramping them up as well would be good. We had one little instance of ramping where something was suddenly worth more points.
Yeah.
And it did impact the end of the game. But if you have after every 4 rounds, one of them shifts off and the next one becomes worth more points.
I think with,
That'd be cool.
with an exception to every 3 rounds, I think, as Lachlan was saying, instead of just end game scoring, I think you have some of those mosts, let's say 2 out of the 4 are randomly chosen to just stick off to the side of the board. And then an event card pops up that says, okay, score mosts now. So it's literally whoever has the most at that point in the game gets points, as well as it's a wipe for the stuff that's the quick ones that are on the board.
Because it basically turns it into a next, right? It's like that. If you get that, then it's like, cool, you're trying to get there and then you'll get the reward as well, as opposed to someone who's just sitting on like 4 reloads.
Because it might give you that option to jump into someone's trap early because you know that the scoring might come up. So just by getting a larger variety in someone else early gives you a free point.
100%.
So it's something that can cycle, even if it only happens twice. Like once it's somewhere in the middle of the game and then once at scoring, it's just more points that can go around to people.
More ways to play the game, which I think is what they were aiming for. Not a game that's just arena combat plus. And this is the plus, and it needed to be a little bit more plus.
I think that like thematically they did a really good job. I was very hesitant. It was battle royales are obviously elimination, but then getting to this was you don't get eliminated, you come back, you're just knocked out for a round, you lose your equipment, you're obviously a little bit weaker, you're gonna do something else as opposed to coming straight back in. So like King of the Hill essentially, or being a gladiator, was done really well. And then the other things that work with that theme just complement it. So having these objectives that are like, ooh, what's that shiny thing over there? What's this shiny thing over here that are gonna like shift the way that you can do it?
Just getting you to think in different ways, getting you to interact with the different mechanics to do something different.
Which is not what I was thinking. I was thinking that it's gonna be very bloodlust. You're gonna go in there, you're gonna try and kill the other people, knock them out, and then we'll rack up another game and then we'll go again and be like a bit quicker. But
I think because there's enough of those games out there, this stands out.
yeah, for sure. And I think the last thing that we didn't touch on is the coolest mechanic in the game, hands down, and that is the score tracker. Chris, do you want to explain the score tracker?
Well, I feel like I did say it earlier.
We touched on it a little bit earlier, but just the way that it levels up and loads up as it goes.
So here's the score tracker. There's no points per se, like visually. So, for example, when you manage to achieve yourself one of these golden fame tokens, in the rulebook it is worth 4 points, but in your line of sight, basically it fills up that much of your progress bar, and as soon as your progress bar is at the end, the game ends, right? So you can visually see very easily, I'm this far away from winning the game. Tom, at a glance, is, like he's very close to finishing the game. And also, like I said, you can see how valuable each kind of fame reward is compared to others. So, for example, the reloads are worth a lot more because they're longer. So that I thought was very cool, because instead of just saying, plus 5 points or something, it's like you physically get a token.
As opposed to having a track where you like get 3 points, move my marker up on the track.
And I'm this far ahead of you.
Yeah, I'm this far ahead of you, which is like cool, but this like definitely plays into that theme of it's like you're trying to get fame, you're trying to do these different things, and this is what you've achieved in that game, and you can see what people have been doing as well. Whereas if it was just a number value, you'd go, he's 10 points ahead of me, but I don't know where those points came from.
Yeah.
Well, Callum is clearly got 2 kills under his belt.
Yeah, that's
Right?
why it's
He's
so
10 points ahead of me.
advanced.
This is worth 3 points, and if I jump there, I can get 2 more, so I can get 6 points in my turn. Where you're just like, I'm halfway on the
This
board.
feels nicer.
Yeah.
It
So-
does, yeah.
So, yeah, one more point about that is that, so the reloads are worth 7, right? But if you were to put an injury, which is worth 3 injuries are actually the same size as a reload, which is 9 points. So it's like the reloads are going to move you up faster, but be worth less points than what an injury is, which is
I
like,
actually disagree.
you
I
reckon?
believe 3, because a 3 and a 4 is like a millimeter longer, something like that, right? Or if I put 3 injuries next to each other, The reload sits on top of that with excess.
Yeah, so, but it's not exactly like 3 to 7. It doesn't end up exactly
Because these are worth, so these ones
4.
are worth 4, right? So if you had 2 of those, then
8.
that's 8 points, but that's
But
the
these
equivalent
are
of
worth
9.
2. So if I did that, and then a 2 on top of that, 7 plus 2 is 9, which does equal just about the same as those.
I think they are cut to size.
They're
very
close-ish. Negatives. Any negatives, any thoughts that didn't quite work out either in gameplay the way you wanted them to? I kind of wasn't a big fan of the domes to sit in there and avoid the gas. But I kind of get that if you are going to sit in there, you're not going to be able to do anything else, and people can wall you off and just stick you in the gas. But that's personal opinion more than anything.
I like the domes, and I think that as the gas would spread, you would have a dome somewhere, and the game does hand out domes as well that are communal ones. So you're not restricted to just yours. Like if you built yours, you could build it here, but then you could take another build action on another turn and move it somewhere else. So I think it's just the fact that we didn't use them as efficiently, and also we didn't use the gas in the correct manner, which meant that the board didn't have that same run into the gas, duck into your dome.
You're supposed to fill out every adjacent space when a gas gets activated for the second time, and we filled in for some reason 2 adjacent spaces. The board fills up quicker, that's about it.
Yeah, but that would impact the way that you would run, because you'd be like, maybe I do stay in the gas just to take a damage, because that's the most the affordable place for me, but then it would make me weaker that someone could get me. So I think that just because we didn't utilize the hideouts or the domes, I don't think they're a negative to the game.
Yeah. I just prefer things forcing for combat, but once again, I think that's personal opinion. Any other negative thoughts before we get into the one big negative thought that we have?
I would have liked to see more items come up, because it was a point where we picked up items and we then just going, these are my items, this is what I'm going to play with.
Yeah.
Where it would be nice to, I
think just for the green ones, I definitely would have liked to see a few more.
Yeah,
of them.
I mean, you can get a whole bunch of green ones if you go out to the sides and visit those.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we got
Maybe
one of our
a
loot
board
drops.
setup kind of deal.
Yeah, we got one of our loot drops early, and then the second one was like 2 turns before the end or something. And so it would have been nice to be able to go, like, just more items that can drop on the field. Because look at the size of this stack of purple items.
Yeah, we barely saw any.
You're going to see 6 of those, 8 of those, 9 of those maps.
If you get all of them as well.
Correct,
We only picked up 1.
In a game.
And I only picked up 1 of them, so we only actually got to see 2 purple cards.
Yeah.
Which that's a decent sized stack, where I think towards the end of the game, you should be able to pick those up easier.
Yeah.
I'm not saying every turn be able to get another 2 options and choose what you're after.
I think I just would have liked to see a few more of the utility items, the different kind of mines, different kinds of grenades. I know they exist, we just didn't see them as much.
And I think you are correct in that, but I think that being that it is modular, that is the base setup. It is very bare bones. There are teleporters that will allow you to go from one side of the map to the other side of the map. There are different like buildings that you can have. So you can have a hospital, which is 3 healing. You have a warehouse, which is you get 4 value of card.
Yeah,
so
cool.
if you wanted 4 1 stars, you could, or you could take a 3 and a 1. So there are other like locations on the map that will do that. But I do agree that in the base game, I don't think that the cards were coming out fast enough, or the events were dropping things on the map as fast as we were picking it up. We were picking things up left, right, center, and then we're like, all right, cool, we've run out of things on the map to pick up on this quadrant. Now all we can do is fight each other. And we were forced to fight each other to get the points because there was no other points left.
Yeah.
Which I don't think it was dropping fast enough. But that is just this map.
I think I'll be very interested to play it with another map.
Yeah.
The one big negative is, to me, the rulebook. This is such a icon-heavy game. There is no index for like what each card does. It has it for some cards, and then some of them were not correct or different to what they were shown to be. There is a difference between ranged combat and melee combat, but it explains it in 2 separate ways that is very confusing. The way the rulebook is set up just does not lead to a smooth game experience. I think once you're going, the rules make sense, but it took us a while to get going.
So normally when we play a game, this is our first time that we've ever played a game. And normally your first game is obviously a little bit jarring anyway, because there's a couple of mechanics that you need to iron out. Normally we have one person that reads the rules and then we jump into it, and that person will explain it and go, yeah, I understand the rules. I'll have it answer any of your questions. We had 3 of us read the rules or 2 of us had read the rules, and 4 of us had watched a rules explanation. And I think just the way that they were worded or the way that it flows, they didn't stick, right? Like, they're not hard rules, they just didn't stick with the way that you would expect them to in other games. The iconography is good, and it did make a lot more sense.
You've got all these big pictures and tiny words, and these dice are supposed to line up, and this is what it's trying to say. And then on the next page, it's like, no, just line up your dice this way.
Yeah.
Like, there's all these little things. I think the rulebook, it possibly is a translation issue. I believe this is a game originally published in French, and it comes with the French rulebook. But just a lot of stuff that didn't make it easy to follow and flow and get things going. I think it's then got a separate icon booklet to show you what things mean. So I think it just needed a proper index saying this is what every card does, this is what every tile does, this is what every achievement is, and then an actual like simplified version. You know how some games have like so in the game, here's how you do one thing kind of page at the end of their rules.
Yeah, for sure. Or like a frequently asked questions sort of thing, right? So because it explains some things in the section that you would imagine it's in sort of a chronological order, but then there's a lot of stuff that is like, here it is, but it's referencing this thing over here. Here's this, it's referencing the thing at the start.
Yeah.
And it's like, cool, just have that rule a second time. Have that rule on the page where it comes up in that example. Like, there's nothing wrong with having that extra rule where it should be. And we found that even when we were trying to flick back to rules, we didn't know where they were going to be found. We didn't know if they were going to be found in the starting area or if they're going to be found at the end area. And even when we found the area, you still have to read the text that is in there
and then text.
Look at an example to explain how that actually works.
It explains events, do events at the end of everyone's phase, and then there's an additional note, skip resolving events until the last player has completed their first turn. The first event will always be resolved before the first player takes their second turn. So it's like, here's how events work, but also events work differently.
I mean, a lot of games also have like a first time setup, and this didn't have a first time setup. It does, but I feel like it was still just like, I need to put some stuff somewhere. Where am I putting this? How many of those do I need? How many of this? Oh, how many of those do you need? It's on the back of your card. It's on the back of your player card. That's where you find it. You don't find it in the rule book. You find it on your player card, right? That should be in the rule book, not on here. It's nice to have that as a reference, but it should be in there. And there's so many times that rules that should have been in the rule book were on the reference card or on the quick reference elsewhere. They weren't in a centralized location. It was a where's Wally of the rules is my biggest complaint.
When there are so many different icons going on, makes it very hard to follow.
Yeah, so one example was this symbol here, right? The stealth symbol. It is found on the tile that you find on the thing. It is never explained in the rulebook, ever. So we read the rules and we watched the game played, or watched a rules explanation for it to get into there, but it's never explained in the rulebook of what that symbol means. So when we got to set up and we got to start playing it and you're ready to start, and then the first question that was asked of the day was, what does that mean? And I go, that's an excellent question. I don't know. Let's have a look.
It just means that you can't be targeted by someone outside your square. Like, that's what it means, but they explain it about ranged combat.
No, they explain it on a different thing. They explain it not in the rulebook, but on a different page entirely.
Anyway, so there's a lot to love about this game, including it's got a really nice insert.
Yeah.
Like, games need proper inserts. Don't do a Splendor and have a massive box. No space.
So, that is one of the coolest things that...
That's a good insert. You got place for tiles, you got place for tokens, you got place for dice.
Place for cards, and we were going to put all of our tokens onto the table and use them from there, but we're like, it comes with such a good insert, let's just pull everything out of the box. If we had more room, this would have been on the table as well, which is fantastic. And, you know, that is just another bonus for it. We did rip on the rules. That's probably the only thing that I didn't like about this game. Everything else, I loved it. I really enjoyed it.
I can see myself smashing this out on a game night. I can see this taking 60 minutes. I can see this being a really satisfying game to play.
Like, I'm sure stuff could be simplified. Like, instead of, say, an activate button and a pickup like item, you could just have an interact action, which does both. At the same time, they have balanced this with the value of dice, so this does function well, as if you're doing a certain action, it's going to take you in a certain direction of what defensive dice you have. But yeah, aside from the rules being the biggest gripe we had, because if you were watching our stream, I'd say the first half of the stream was us just reference checking our first 2 turns.
Yeah.
After the first 2 or 3 turns, it was a pretty just, I'm doing this on my turn, I'm moving, I'm going. And the rest of it flowed well. There's the odd question we had that was like, oh, when does this take effect? Like, when did purple items come out? Because I was sitting there going, I'd love some purple items.
Yeah.
Quick rules check was just like, comes out in a supply drop. It's like, okay. Like,
But not everything was that easy to check.
yeah.
Chris, any final thoughts before we rank this game?
I certainly very enjoyed it. I don't actually play Battle Royale games at all. Like, I obviously know what Fortnite is, but I've never played it. But it was fun. It was cool to see a game where, like, I think it was Tom that said, or maybe it was Lockie, where like, yeah, there's 4 of us and it's all the all, and basically the aim of the game is to injure and kill each other. But it still didn't feel like, okay, once you were dead, that was it. Like, it at least dropped you back in and was like, all right, you keep everything that you had before. Like, you just gotta.
Not super punishing, right?
Yeah, like it wasn't super punishing. I don't think it was. As for my like main criticism, I think that perhaps there was a balance issue with points, because I kind of figured out that like the number of actions it takes. So killing people is the best way to get points, right? Because you get a red token for an injury and a reload in the same turn, right? It's worth 10 points. Think about the number of dice you have to spend to do that action. You might have to shoot someone with 2 dice of a gun. You might have to move with 1 dice to get there first. So let's say that's 3 dice to get 10 points. Whereas any other kind of points that you can gain, unless they're the incidental orange ones, you basically spend a turn, if not a turn and a half, setting up, and you get something that's equivalent of 2 or 3 points.
You've got to like get those points along the way while still focusing on killing
so
people.
I wish I had known that killing was the main thing that you should be doing, right? So that everything else, if you have a spare dice here and there, you could pick up a yellow token and just don't even worry about getting it to the middle until you happen to be there and you have a spare dice.
And I was in the same boat, right?
Yeah.
Like, we were both, like, we were playing very non-combatant roles because we were like, cool, this game offers the ability to pick up objectives. Let's do that. Let's try and see if this game would work in that function. And
Where
I
I
picked up
think
like...
if these ones played into that playstyle a bit more, then that could be
But
really fun.
also, like, for example, like, look at the number of points that both Tom and Callum got, and they were mostly the fighters, right? You were doing what? Building walls, right? And you ended up with only half a score tracker. I was putting down traps, and I ended up with about half a score tracker. So I feel like that it perhaps should have been outlined that actually, yes, killing is pretty much the best. Like the premier way of scoring points, you should be
You'll
trying
have to kill people to be in the
to
game.
kill people all the time to try and win the game, because
but get
doing
other
anything
points to give yourself the edge.
giving the edge, right? So if you want to set a trap down, you obviously want to zone people away, and it's useful in that regard, but like don't expect that is a way that you can win the game, because the only good way to win the game is to kill.
I mean, the only thing that I did different was that I got an extra pickup and I did kill you, for example, right? But I mean, otherwise we both went for the loot and played a very different game to what these guys did. So
I would actually argue that injuring people is more important than killing people, because you can only really get 1 injury per combat that you're in. So even though you might injure and kill them, you get a full 10 points. It was very, very rare that we were able to kill someone in the same turn that we initiated the first combat.
Right,
So as simple as a ranged weapon that you go and you pick something up, but you make an effort just to shoot someone once, you get those little bits of points. You get, 2 of these and then an injure and then another one.
By the same token, though, if you do that, someone else is going to mop up your kills and get more points.
But if you only injure them once or you injure them a bit, it's hard for someone else to initiate a full-on kill afterwards.
It's hard, but it's easier because you've done the legwork.
yeah, see, I don't know. I don't think that you should have got an injury token if you got a reload. I think it should have negated it. So
I think
it's like
perhaps if a reload was the same size, right? Because then, like, sure, the game goes a bit longer. You could even reduce the size of the score tracker to account for that. But then, the size of the amount of points that you get physically compared to, let's say, someone triggered a trap, which literally happened 1 time, right?
Yeah.
That is so disproportionate
But
to me.
you get both the trap and the injury.
Okay, so you get an injury as well, so let's line those up. You get 5 points versus 10, so it's
Chance.
still twice as good.
Whereas I think that like it
to
should be
kill
more like
someone.
that, right?
Yeah,
Like,
for an entire kill on someone, right?
But you're right. If it was made abundantly clear at the start that killing is the best way, whereas I think we were all led to believe that you can play it this way,
Yeah,
that
like
way.
there's like three
you don't
different
have-
ways
you can
you can
play a non-combatant because the theme is, hey, you're trying to do objectives.
get some
you're
fans,
trying to entertain the producers or the people watching the show, and you
Yeah.
don't have to be killing to do that. You're doing objectives to get those points.
Was it
But
one,
like you're
two,
saying, it's
three,
like
four?
just negate them. Don't worry about it. Just go straight kill. Someone lands in, kill them again. Get them
Yeah.
as soon as they
5
come in.
and
Yeah, exactly.
kind of 6 of the objectives are combat focused.
Yeah. So yeah,
There's only 2 that aren't.
that's fine. Like I would, you know, it would have been fine if it was like, okay, get yourself a weapon as quick as you can. Choose a weapon which is more likely to not only defend yourself, but to be able to score injuries or kills, reloads, right? Because that is the main way of getting points, right? So every other part of the game, like the traps, walls, bases, moving in and out of mountain spaces or picking up loot and stuff, right? All of those seem like either secondary or tertiary to killing people, right? So really, unless it's incidental and you're in a position to do something, you shouldn't do that thing if you could kill someone instead.
I think the biggest way to combat that would be either giving those overall scores or more quick points for stuff like disarming traps or dropping stuff off, where it's just like be the first person
I'm
to drop
surprised
two
there's
off.
not stuff for disarming traps in here.
Yeah.
Because like there needs to be something to kind of push you to do those things for bonus points. Otherwise, because as Tom said, most of them are killing related, you may as well kill someone and pick up some bonus points while you're at it.
Yeah.
But that leads us to ranking the game. We rank every single game that we play. Chris, if you want to grab the ranking list. Not based on what game is better than another, because how are you supposed to say that this game with hexagons is better than another game with hexagons? Just that if given the opportunity, what we would prefer to play. We haven't played as many games so far this year, so it's not ranking too many games against anything else, but we have our ranking list from last year, and you can get an idea of what kind of games we like to play. We're going to roughly base this, because Dune Imperium was a 9 out of 10, and so we're going to grade this out of 10, and get our thoughts on where this would be put on the board. Personally, this game is a solid 6 out of 10. It's not bad, it's a fun little game, but there is enough about it that makes me go, I personally would prefer to play a Euro game or play a combat game that is quicker, but that is my personal opinion, 6 out of 10.
Let's go next.
I'll go to 6.5 is what I'm giving it. I think it's got enough going for it that you can get it down and play it, with the caveat of you have to invest everybody beforehand to actually get to know and play the game.
Yeah.
Whereas a shorter game, you could pick up and go, here's a quick reference, let's jump in and play. This one basically forcing people, especially people who are new to board games, it's definitely hard to go, hey, let's play this game. Cool, let me spend 2 hours now teaching you the ins and outs of what's going on, especially now that we've played it once that we know, oh, I'm going to kill people to get points. Like explaining that as well as the rules, 6.5.
Cool. I think that it does exactly what it sets out to do, and that is be a thematic game that is fun, drop in, and you play it for the theme of the game, not so much the enjoyment of crunching numbers like you would with a heavy Euro. So I think it achieves exactly what it wants to do, and the only real criticism was the rules that we had. I think the gameplay is very solid and it has a lot of replay value. A lot of people do like battle royales, and I think it could be something that we bring to the table when we're feeling something a little bit fast, lighthearted, easy. But you would have to know the rules inside and out to explain to someone how to play it, which is fine because we've played it now once, and I think that I could do a much better rules explanation for whoever's going to play it the next time, and it would run a lot smoother and have those answers ready for people. And I think that it is still a good game. It does exactly what it needs to do. It sets out to do what it wants, and it has some really cool thematic elements that I've never seen in a game before. So I think it would be like a 7 or an 8. I think it is a very good game. It's just that it's probably comparing it to
Not
other games.
approachable.
I think it's approachable if you like the theme, right? Like if you like battle royales, you'd be like, that's interesting. I'm intrigued. I want to get into that.
I feel if someone likes battle royales and tried to learn this as a battle royale game, it would confuse them.
Okay, fair. But I mean, like, if you were intrigued by battle royales, which is the big selling point for the game, and then you got in and played it, it feels like a battle royale. It plays like a battle royale. There are obviously things that have changed so that it still is fun the whole way through, that you're not having been eliminated. Yep. I mean, would I play it over like Dune Imperium or like Rise of X, which is the expansion for Dune? Probably not. They're very simple worker placement games, and you get the different satisfaction. This has a very particular satisfaction which you don't see in a lot of board games, and that's not always appealing for certain people. It's just a different type. It's a different type of satisfaction, right? It's not a Euro. It's not a worker placement, and those have a very particular scratch that they like. They itch. The itch that they scratch, which I think is fine for the type of game that it is. So I think it sits in that little
7-8ish out of 10. Chris?
Yeah.
I liked it. The one thing that this game does well, not one thing, the one thing that I want to touch on that this game does well is that a lot of the time, if there are games which are similar to this, where it's all about like collecting loot and, you know, like basically comboing turns together, that basically if you miss one time or if you fall off, then you find yourself spending the next 3 or 4 turns trying to sluggishly gather back everything that you had, and it just becomes like this real loss of motivation. But I think this game didn't do that. I think that like, although yes, like Lockie got screwed up that one turn, right? You lost 3 of your dice, and all of a sudden everything that you planned had fallen apart. Right after that, like the turn after, you were back scoring points, you were like doing what you wanted to do, and the game has a good, like literally like drops you in again and says go again, right?
Yeah, it didn't have that like someone is so high up on their mantle they can't be dethroned because they have equipment and they have weapons, but combat doesn't always favor the person who has the equipment and weapons.
Definitely favors the person who's attacking.
It favors the attacker, which I think is great because that's the whole idea. Is it's like you're not both going into combat. Someone's doing their combat on the turn, and you have to just be like, am I going to play defensively on my turn because someone I think is going to attack me? Or am I just going to do my own thing and just hope that it works out that way? Because dying is not really that much of a negative. That you could just go, I'm going to try and do this other thing and risk it for the reward.
Yeah.
But like that is a testament to how well the game is designed, because then like no matter where you are at whatever stage of the game, whether you're winning or losing, you're actually still having fun and you're still like thinking about how you're going to play your next turn out.
They understand what makes this game fun, not what makes it satisfying to win.
Yeah, precisely, right? So I had a lot of fun playing this game. So I would give it a 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10?
I would
6
absolutely
out of 10?
play this again.
6.5 out of 10? 7 out of 10?
7.5, yeah.
Sweet. It goes in a solid 7 out of 10 place right there in the middle of the board.
Look at that.
Wherever our 7 happens to be.
But those are our thoughts on Reload. We are Nerds of the West. Thank you so much for watching. Let us know if you agree, if you disagree, if you want to see this game played with more maps in the future. And we will catch you next time.